models. Once you cast off what you've been taught about what they're doing and why they're doing it, your life is going to improve. Those models are not only enabling, but they're destructive to people trying to survive in these kinds of abusive relationships. With the next tactic, which is scapegoating. Not me. Anybody else. Externalizing the blame and scapegoating, making out like whatever I did that was wrong or hurtful or harmful had to do with somebody else. There's always a scapegoat. It's a great tactic because it, first of all, diverts your attention elsewhere from the person who's really causing you the trouble. And, and all of these tactics, much like the thinking errors, many times they're packaged together. It's kind of like a 1, 2, 3 punch. And the more of these things you can package together, package a little rationalizing with a little scapegoating and a little playing the victim, and et cetera, the more things you can package together, the more effective the tactics are. We need to spend a little bit of time on denial because of what it is and what it isn't. Most of the time when we think of denial, especially for those of you who are here today who are mental health professionals, when you think about denial, you think about the traditional ego defense mechanism of denial, which is designed to protect a person against the conscious experience of an unbearable pain. And a story that I relate in my book, Character Disturbance, to describe that, I give the example of a woman who has been married to her spouse, her loving spouse, for 40 years. And they're out in the backyard one day, and it's hot that day, and it appears as though he has suffered a stroke. Now, they're elderly. These kinds of things happen, but this was pretty sudden, unexpected. But the next thing she knows, she finds herself in the hospital with this lifetime partner, and the doctors are saying that he's not going to recover from this, that there's been too much damage, and that now they even need to consider when to possibly pull the plug. Just 10 minutes ago, they were planting flowers. Now they're saying it's over. But she holds his hand, and she comes every day to visit, and she keeps hoping beyond hope that it's going to be okay. She knows what they tell her. They tell her it's over. She knows he's going to pull through. She talks to him. The nurses say, he can't hear you. She says, I know he can. Is this woman a liar? No. She's in a unique psychological state that we call denial. Why? Because the reality breaks down with time is we'll see an outpouring of grief and anguish as the feelings that she was protecting herself from having can't help but gush forth. Now, I like to contrast this with a real-life example that I also give in the book Character Disturbance of the young man in junior high school who has a particular fondness for strolling up to unsuspecting students and shoving the books out of their hands until they all fall on the floor, because it's just a fun and exciting thing to do. And one day he's caught by the hall monitor doing this, and The hall monitor yells out, "Joe!" And he goes, "What? What?" Now, think about this. This denial. Didn't do anything wrong, right? Why? Coupled with a little feigning innocence. We'll talk about that tactic later. Is he dealing with so much pain and agony that he just can't bear it? Probably not. Does he really think he didn't do it? Kind of like that woman who really possibly thought that he might pull through? Does he really think he didn't do it? No, unless he's crazy. This denial is not the denial we were trained to understand. This is a tactic. It's a lie, pure and simple, and it's a tactic. If I can convince the hall monitor that she didn't see what she just saw, and I didn't do what I just did, I won't get D-Hall tomorrow. It's a gambit. If I act innocent enough, if I act outraged enough that you would even think that I would do such a thing, even though you've seen me do it thousands of times, and you know it's my favorite pastime, maybe I can avoid some adverse consequence. It's a tactical maneuver. And like all of these maneuvers, remember, as I said, they're all active fighting stances, especially on the principle that the person knows you want them to adopt, and it's a reliable signal, they're going to do it again, right? This denial is not the same denial. Now, why am I belaboring this point? Well, because a lot of liars come into therapeutic encounters refusing to admit certain things that are essential to admit before they can solve the problem. And when we interpret that denial as necessarily meaning that they must be in so much pain that they just can't accept the truth, we're done. We're done. Game, set, match. Therapeutic encounter over. You are not going to affect change with this person. And your view of that, your view of what's happening there, your cognitive distortion is going to be the facilitator, the enabler of a lack of change, positive change in your therapeutic relationship. Denial is a rare psychological state that occurs in people who are not characterologically disordered and who are facing more pain than they can possibly endure at a conscious level. That's why the term was coined, and it does happen. It is not the same as refusing to admit the truth. It is not the same as just plain old lying. I hear so many times clinicians say, well, I didn't confront that client on this because they're still in denial, and I'm waiting for them to come out of their denial. You know, the whole heart of cognitive behavioral therapy is that the way we see things and the way we think about things influences how we behave. This is true for therapists also. If we're looking through those traditional lenses and we're buying into those notions that don't apply, and we're so perceiving the situation in such a distorted way, we are not going to be effective. There's a passage from the New Testament that says, if you're going to successfully pluck the speck out of your brother's eye, you better get the log in your own eye out. What's meant by that is, it's pretty hard to remove something very small in the first place. And in order to do it accurately, you have to have some precision vision of your own. And when our perspective is clouded, when we're looking through lenses that we actually believe to be improving our vision, you know, we learned all these things in school and that made us wiser and smarter than a lot of folks. But those glasses are actually distorters that cause us to misperceive. Then we're not really removing any specks. We're not even facilitating the removal of any specks. I bristle every time I hear folks talk about denial in an inappropriate way. Most of the time, especially with the character disturbed individuals that you're increasingly encountering these days, most of the time, what we call denial and infer is an ego defense mechanism. Most of the time, that denial is simply a tactic, a stubborn refusal to acknowledge what is well known to be the truth